Good morning, Andrea and David, the co-owners of Errant Empire Herbal Dispensary. And it's such a joy to have you here today. So welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is fun.
You're so welcome. So you two had a crazy dream one day, yes?
Yeah, I mean, it's coalesced and come together over time. A little bit of old history, and then once I graduated herbal medicine, it kind of evolved into Errant Empire.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So talk a little bit more about the history behind this, the development of this idea.
Yeah, I mean, in college, what I kind of learned was herbal medicine is the original medicine, and I have my own, I guess, take on approaching herbal medicine in the sense we're trying to encourage the power going back to people. So this dream was about creating a space where people come in and they kind of walk themselves in this door, and then they're taking the steps and the action to improve their own health versus seeking like the next practitioner to heal them, if you will. And that was the original vision, like sovereignty and health, and returning medicine back to the people's power, their hands.
Yeah,
Love
for me,
that.
it was I wanted to create a spa, actually, a higher end experience spa. And that was kind of always the dream for many years. And then I did actually get some money from the RCMP when I left. And instead of that, because we had kids, created this instead, which I think is better. This is more in line with helping people, I think, and meeting people where they're at rather than creating a high-end spa for wealthier people. So
Beautiful. So when you think about the kinds of people that come into the store and what that invites in versus, you know, who would come into that expensive spa, absolutely is different, right?
Definitely.
Yes. So who do you see that comes into the store? Like, first of all, let's talk about what it is you offer specifically.
Yeah, so I mean, in my path, I after college, I did a couple years at other dispensaries, and I kind of looked at what they were offering at different places, what they were doing. And one thing I noticed where they weren't bringing together herbal medicine and other practitioners. So when we were designing the space, we wanted rooms specifically, right, to attract healing practitioners that use herbs as well. And then we have a huge dispensary. We have 150 plus tinctures and dry herbs, with the sole focus of trying to like relocalize herbal medicine, which I could talk about later if you want. And in the sense of, again, that more sovereignty and health again with where our medicine is coming from versus being so dependent on other things.
yeah, and we get quite a mix of people. I think I'm not here on the daily, but I stop in here and there with the kids, and I'm seeing quite a mix of people coming in. Some of those wealthier people and people in lower income, people with lots of different health concerns. So, yeah.
So there's a variety of people, those that are very familiar with herbal medicine and those who are just like, oh, I just walked by and this looks interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's also a common theme running between all of that, which is people are coming in because they've tried the other path. They've tried the allopathic model or conventional model, and it either falls short and they're kind of left with like, I don't know what to offer you, or there's the whole side effect component that comes with that medicine, like almost too strong of medicine for not a strong condition. And it's kind of like herbal medicine is that middle ground. I use the analogy in the dispensary of, somebody quickly gets a diagnosis of, we'll just say a random diagnosis, and the doctor's like, here, take this strong medication, not saying that there's like these other steps you could take before that strong medication that might have side effects. You can do nutrition and lifestyle, you can do herbs, and then sometimes if those things aren't working, then there might be a need for the conventional medicine.
So conventional medicine as the last choice after you've tried on a bunch of different things.
Definitely. And yeah, we see people that have tried conventional medicine first, have gone that full length, and the medicines, their medicine, their model's fallen short to it, and they're looking for something new. So that's a pretty common theme we see.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So when somebody comes into the store, what does that look like? Besides the looky-loos, you know, they're so great, right? Like it's an accidental drop-in, or they've dropped down, you know, down a hole.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, ultimately they walk in, there's a common thread of people saying that how warm it is in here. And then, you know, we kind of ask, like, what brings you in? Are you in the Esquimalt area? How did you hear about us? And then we kind of start asking the questions of like the purpose, the meaning. And sometimes it's herbs, sometimes it's window shopping, as you said. And then another common theme I've been seeing is people are coming in and they'll look at a card, and to kind of tie in your practice, Maureen, is somebody will be like, oh, I was just reading about live blood analysis. And then they stumble into Errant Empire and we have a live blood analysis practitioner. And it's almost like that synchronicity aspect happens too with the practitioners we have here. So they kind of find what they're looking for. Herbs is obviously what I do, but they find other practitioners through coming to the doors too.
Can you do like a free 15-minute chat with people to match them up to the right medicine? And
yeah, definitely. But
you also can do private 1-hour consults as well, hey?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
There's such a depth of offerings available, which is just so beautiful. It's like we've all put out our etheric, you know, kind of business cards out there, and they find us. So it's really, really beautiful what's been created. And can you talk a little bit more about what offerings the store has for people?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the live blood analysis with Maureen. We also have Christy, who does Reiki and massage. These are all private practices as well. So it's again, breaking away from that model that exists out there, where when people go to a clinic, they're kind of all under that same umbrella. Like, you're a part of that clinic, you have to follow their marketing, their branding, where here we're kind of like inviting people to come in with their practice. And then so we have Christy that does Reiki and massage, and then we have Victoria Wellness, which is more a collective of practitioners that do, there's retired nurses and doctors, they have chiropractors, they have reflexologists, so they're kind of a whole mix of things, and they're trying to recreate that model as well of conventional medicine.
Beautiful. So there are so many that are on the same wavelength with respect to helping people find other ways that aren't kind of the norm. Yes,
definitely. And Errant Empire kind of grew into its name at that point. I mean, we could talk about the foundations of where that name came from, but it in a sense has become like this place where all of these different modalities have come together that I didn't really envision. It just they all fell into place, and almost perfectly as well. Like, everything has kind of worked out in a way, and it grew into its name of this place where people come searching the errant path.
Yeah, and I would say there's like a bubble of protection around this place too, because you were saying who comes in, who's attracted, and during the mandates specifically, it's like people who wouldn't have been comfortable with us and our beliefs just walked right by. They didn't even see it. I saw it many times. It was like
wow.
It was like we were invisible. And then the people who were complying with mandates and stuff, and people who also were against them, just they were looking for something else and they got attracted in and they just found us. So it was almost like we had a bubble of protection. So maybe you had something to do with that one.
Yeah. Or it was definitely collective, because we're all like-minded. It's awesome. So you opened during the most crazy time ever, historically speaking, and that was so courageous. What prompted you to carry on forward?
Yeah, there was a period, there was a good 5-month window where I'm doing the back end research. You know, starting a business is so much more than like the idealistic. There's like the practical of like business licensing and distributors and all that stuff, accounting, business plans. Yeah, it was a lot of that back end stuff that I spent about 5-6 months doing. And in that time, I'm going back and forth of like, but like mandates, I don't want to, like, I don't agree with them. And I'm also not going to just comply, but I don't want to like push and then get pushed back. And so I'm doing this back and forth. And then there was the day where it's just kind of like, let's go, let's do this. And I would say really one of the, like maybe the etherical or philosophical ideas that I saw developing was, while we were all told to stay home, we're keep everybody safe, do this, all of these big corporation conglomerates were behind the scenes making big moves, and they're still doing while we're told to stay home and do nothing. And I'm like, that tells me it's a time to create, not a time to sit back. And so that was kind of one of the philosophical ideas. And then, then it was kind of like trusting that we're not going to be hitting rocky roads the whole time, or we're resisting what we don't agree with.
A lot of it was trust. At a point, we had to just say, okay, we're doing it. We're doing it. Our parents think we're crazy, and friends are questioning this decision. And but at a certain point, you just have to take the leap of faith. You have to trust, and trust in your own idea, and trust in that the universe, or whatever you want to call it, will provide. And it did. So
it sure did. I mean,
yeah.
with all the challenges that ensued just with the world itself, you guys just kept, putting up wallpaper, laying floor tiles, buffing wood.
Yes.
Totally.
It was a lot of work in that sense too. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, Andrea, David continually praises you for all the contribution you made with respect to the entire aesthetic appeal of the place. So your name is kind of spoken highly of often.
I've heard him say that to people. It's nice. Yeah, I'm sure he would have been happy just with a hole in the wall shop, and it would have been a little raggedy, but he would have been fine with that.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's definitely more than that. It's just beautiful, and that aesthetic appeal is commented on almost with every new person that comes in.
Oh,
right?
That's awesome to hear. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was a little bit tired of the pastel boho witchy vibe that all of the herb shops and holistic places and metaphysical shops seem to have. I mean, David's a guy. I wanted it to be a little bit more masculine and lots of warm wood tones, and be different from what everybody else has. So we kind of came up with rock and roll and the Wild West. So it's a little bit of that.
Yeah. Well, the wallpaper behind you in the Blue Deer room, which is the room that I use when I come into the store, I mean, everybody feels really enveloped by nature and kind of that etheric energy coming off the deer. So it's like commented on all the time, even from people that keep coming. They're going, I just love this wallpaper.
I'm glad they like it, because it can be a bit overwhelming, I think.
Complex.
But I'm glad people like it. But there's a story behind the Blue Deer room, the Blue Deer wallpaper, and I don't know if you want to share that shamanic sort of connection.
Yeah, as we were talking about Andrea's aesthetic creation of this place, a lot of my input was more of the metaphysical, or a lot of like the teachings and learnings that I've learned over time. So balancing the masculine and feminine, looking at the archetypes that move me specifically, and that I think move healing ultimately. And our teachers in Ecuador, they have a tradition of the blue deer. And the blue deer is kind of leading the way. It's this mythological archetype that is a part of the healing process and leading the shamanic path. And so when we were looking at the different rooms, like we have 2 rooms in the back that kind of balance the masculine and feminine. And then this room was the Blue Deer room, which reminds me of my teachers in Ecuador and their tradition and what they've shared with us, as well as like the healing potential that is in this space. And so that was my input, was a little bit of the metaphysical, mystical, magical stuff.
Does the blue have any specific implication?
Not that I came across. I mean, I can think of blue in itself. The blue deer ties in. There's a tradition with San Pedro specifically in like Central America, and there's an amazing video out there for people to find. If I try to pronounce it, it would totally ruin the name of it. But I give you the link if you wanted, and you could share it with people if you want. But the blue deer ties in with San Pedro and this archetype of healing in the celestial realms.
Nice. Well, and all the colors chosen, like even in the bathroom, which makes me stick around a little bit longer. Can you say more about that?
Well, our electrician, I remember him saying, I wasn't sure about these colors you had lying around. But in the end it worked. I wanted it to feel Victorian. I mean, we're in Victoria. There's a nice old English vibe here, and that whole era of the Wild West. So I was thinking like the Southwest of the United States. I was thinking of Victorian era here with the woodwork and the busy wallpapers. And then the bathroom, it had an ugly ceramic tile floor from the 1980s or whatever that was. We can't rip that out. That's just going to take way too much effort. So, I'm Googling late at night how to paint tile floors and how to make it look like a little bit Adobe, but with brighter colors. So I don't know. I don't know how it all came together. I use my imagination a lot. I just lay in bed and imagine things, and then I start shopping. So online shopping and Pinterest and saving images, and eventually it all just kind of comes together. And
Nice.
Also finding used stuff. I'm super lucky with going on Used Victoria or garage sale or places like that and finding the exact right piece that I need for a space. So
and they all fit perfectly. Like I saw
exactly, yes.
Tuck in a shelf like at the front window, and it's like perfect.
Yeah, and you can find stuff like that for $25 when lumber's going through the roof right now. So yeah, I've just had a lot of luck, and I like.
And hopefully some fun. Have you had some fun?
It was fun, but I was pregnant at the time too, so it's a little crazy. A lot going on.
And you're responsible for kind of pulling together all the items that are not herbs, like in the other kind of little shopping zone. You carefully choose items to go there. Yeah,
the way I do that is just what calls to me. I do the Instagram for the shop as well. So people often think they're talking to David, but it's me. And
it's not you, David. Come on.
But when I'm scrolling through Instagram, if I see something, I've done a lot of Christmas shopping over the years off Instagram, things like that. And if it's a product that we have in our house that we like, I want to bring it to other people. So the rainbow decals are a good example of that. And then also what we were talking about this business, one of the important things for retail for us was to bring in stuff that we were taught to use by our teachers for ceremony. So you'll see vintage bells around the shop, you'll see incense, you'll see Palo Santo, and just metaphysical items that our teachers have taught us to use. So we wanted to make them available to people for that type of introspective work.
It's all there. And the incense is beyond, like, I just can't get enough of it. I've given away so many packages and continue to buy packages. And I've already got a list of more packages to go.
Well, thank you.
It's such lovely incense. Like, I don't think I've enjoyed incense I'm a big user of, but this is so special. And the packaging of it inside, you open it up and there's a feather and has a little piece of twine. It's like magic.
Yeah, you'll notice we don't have tons of different brands of things. We just kind of hand select things that we like and we enjoy. And, if people have their favorite, they might have to get it somewhere else, but we just try to bring in stuff that we love. So.
Oh, well done. the Florida water, which I've had such
Yes.
a hard time sourcing. Oh my gosh. And so my source dried up, and then I saw it on the shelf one day and I was like, oh my God, this is great.
The
And
real Florida water.
the real, I know
The
there are
real
so
one,
many
yeah.
others. I absolutely. So I recently did readings at a Women's Day, and I gave each of them a little bottle of the Florida water.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. And hopefully they find the love for it that I have for it and you have for it. So,
Well, the smell just triggers those memories
right?
of our teachers in South America, and yeah,
Yes.
it's powerful stuff.
It's like for me doing, just working with my mesa and using Florida water to make connection and dispel any negative energy. It literally seems to light up the third eye and open the pineal gland for me. It's and so
Wow.
heart opening and grounding. It's like magic water.
Yeah, that's what
But
it felt. You know what? They even used it on our bug bites when we were down there. They just,
yeah.
yeah, it's special.
So where does the name Florida come from? Like Florida's getting all the credit when it's actually not from Florida, or is it?
I
Well,
think it's made in the US, but they make
Yes.
a greenish colored one for America for some reason.
Is
And
that
then
the
the one,
cologne?
yeah, yeah, it smells similar, but it's slightly different.
Mhm.
It has the same label on it, looks the same, but the color of it is more green.
Mhm.
And then the yellow one, the very yellow one, is the one you get in Peru
Mhm.
and in South America at the different markets and everything. And it does have a different smell. And I'm not sure why they make two different ones and only sell one in South America. It is hard to get. So hopefully my sources don't dry up too,
Oh,
because
you keep going, girl, because
we
I
have
don't want to
friends
run
in
it.
Peru right now. And I'm like, just bring
Oh,
back Florida water.
yeah, cases of it. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It's so magical. I love it.
there's a
So,
little, I was just going to say there's a little bit of history with it, that they would say that the history of Florida water and the creation of it was the original shaman in South America. They died and went to heaven, and when they came back, they recreated the smell of heaven, and that's what Agua de Florida is. So
Wow, I didn't
that's,
know.
I
yeah, that's the,
know. Okay, that's why it's so powerful, right?
exactly.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to know that. And please keep bringing it in, because it's like, I always check if it's still there. In
There's
case
one
it's
left.
not still there. I know. I know. I'm just so in love with it. So,
There is a funny story we have with it. We were at an ayahuasca retreat and one of the guys drank a bunch of it. You're not supposed to drink it. Please don't drink it, people.
oh, don't do this
He
at
drank
home.
he drank a big swig of it before the ceremony, and when it got going, all we heard for 5 hours was, "Oh, it's so beautiful!
Oh,
It's so beautiful!"
what?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
pretty funny.
Which is different from some of the experiences with ayahuasca.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's the trick to a better experience.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, now you have to bring in crates of this stuff. Oh man. Okay, so with the shop, I love that the children come in and there's so much for them. The decals that you sell, I've bought them for my grandchildren, and the magic with them is unmatched.
Oh,
It's
good.
oh my gosh, they're running around having just like, I can't believe it. And look, and it's just beautiful. Who knew that that could come from a sticker?
I know,
Totally.
it's incredible.
Right? So they're pretty darn thrilled with that. So,
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, rainbow medicine.
yes, yes. So, what are the running themes that you seem to deal with from an herbal medicine point of view, David?
Mostly, I mean, on the surface level, it's mostly just anxiety, stress, sleep, immune stuff. Like those are kind of like the main themes when it comes to like conditions. But interestingly enough, the shop has this ebb and flow where we see patterns of the same conditions of different people over the course of a week or two. And some weeks it's these chronic conditions like hyperthyroidism. We'll see 3 of those. Or this last week I had one person was calling in for these specific powders that we don't have, unfortunately, but their dog had fleas and they were trying to treat fleas. And then the next person that walked through the door, she's like, yeah, my son was just battling with a little bit of fleas recently. I'm like, and these patterns of seeing, and I've never seen fleas come through the dispensary over my, 6 years that I've been practicing. So we see these patterns. Sometimes it slows down, and then all of a sudden everybody comes out and is looking for some sort of medicine. Everybody's connected more than I think we think about.
Well, the other day, what was it? Wednesday, it was so hopping in there. I've never seen it so hopping. And I guess pretty busy in there, of course, but that was unusually busy. Were there any themes running through that day, or was it, what did that look like from your perspective?
It was more, I used the analogy, like what I saw in my head that day was, over the past few weeks, things have been kind of like trickling through. I'm picturing like a clogged pipe, and like little bits are kind of pushing through. And then that day, it was like the pressure behind the clog had just built up so much that everything pushed through. And we were seeing complex chronic conditions. A client that we have that has cancer was calling looking for support. A couple other conditions, like it wasn't the typical cold and flus. It was like everybody was stuck for a period of time energetically, and then they all started erupting, and like now's the time to come out and search something healing. And it's refills, but it's also new clients too. So
you're getting good feedback if people are coming in for refills.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have the people that come for the one-offs and they just need support here and there. We have people that are kind of looking for an alternative to conventional medicine. So that's a pattern I see often, which is like, I don't really care what the problem is, just give me something to fix it. And as we know in the holistic world, it doesn't work that way. Like quite often there's other steps that need to be taken, whether it's nutrition or lifestyle. Herbs work amazingly, but they're not a replacement for conventional medicine. It requires a lot more than just throwing something at a problem to fix it. And so that's a pattern we see. And so they'll come back and ebb and flow that way. And then we have, like with your live blood analysis that we've seen changes. You've seen changes, and you've shared with us like how the medicine's working, whether we're talking about the liver or microbial stuff. So that's like amazing feedback that we have that connection with, as your podcast is called, like bridging the science and the mystical together, that we have a little bit of the science, and then plants that are just supposed to be plants, that mystical aspect are changing people's blood and healing.
And you're not all about taking people off their meds, and you do work. Some people need to be working with the conventional medicine, and you work with them on that.
Yeah, my approach, I would say, is I try to take like a middle of the ground. I don't push people in one direction. If they come in and say they want to come off their meds, I don't say, well, here I am, I'm here to help you. I always make that encouragement to like think about it, talk with a practitioner, but I'm supporting their choice. I'm going to be facilitating their path towards that path. Or if they come in and say, I want to use my medications, what else can I have? Then we work alongside that path. And I don't really force their hand, because what I've learned is you can't force something on somebody then when they're not ready for it. And if that's their path to work side by side, herbs can do some amazing things.
I think we've always encouraged personal responsibility for your own health, but also meeting people where they're at. I think it's important. I think that's why a lot of people feel comfortable here, and that's all David and Kristen and how they speak to people about their health.
Absolutely. And we have to edit and preface everything that we do with, being a complement to what they're already up to, and at full disclosure with their medical practitioners, should they, that's entirely in their hands. But we're not there to replace, we're not there to criticize, we're there as information. That's how I approach it. And I know that you do as well. And if we can go naturally at any time, it's really the preferred way as far as the body goes, because medications are foreign, but we can work together and complement that to keep them out of harm's way. So because
Yeah,
medication is chemical, right? So
yep. There's the Western tradition, just like people be more familiar with traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurveda.
mhm.
Western herbal medicine has its own energetics, its own way of describing like plants and their properties. And one of the herbalists I read, he was talking about the energetics of pharmaceuticals. And if you were to take almost all pharmaceuticals, the energetics of that capsule is cold and, in a sense, not alive. There's no vitality to it. It's just cold. And when you apply something that is cold in the Western tradition, it's kind of like applying a dead medicine. And that's partially, I think, why we see so many side effects with some of these medications, because they're working on such a narrow pathway. And then that narrow pathway is inhibiting or preventing another aspect of the body to express itself. And so, yeah, there's an energetic component about pharmaceuticals as well, beyond the science component, that it's a cold medicine. It just stops, and you don't want to stop everything in its tracks like that.
With the herbs, in my experience, I've taken training in herbal medicine, but certainly not to the extent that you have by any means. But part of it was, there was a huge part that was merging with the energy of the plant and seeing if it was our medicine, and really seeing energetically whether it was complementary, and if it's what we needed to dance with at the time. So herbs are dealing with the biology, but also with the energetics of the body, and also
Absolutely.
with our spiritual connection. So is there any in particular that are favorites of yours for opening all portals?
Opening all portals. Yeah.
I know that's kind of loaded, but I thought I'd throw it out there.
It is kind of what you were saying, dance with at that time. Bacopa has become one of my favorite go-tos for everything from like chronic conditions like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, all the way down to just stress and tension in the shoulders. It's so gentle that it doesn't have side effects, but it's so strong that it doesn't, that you can use it for these complex conditions. But when I first was introduced to Bacopa and I was starting my dance with it, if you will, my body rejected it. It was in a point where it was too much. It was like overstimulating. I felt ungrounded rather than grounded. So there is that aspect, that there is the right herb at the right time. There was I did jujitsu for a little while, so I was following some jujitsu practitioners, and there's this guy, his name's Hodger Gracie, and if anybody watches jujitsu, they'll know that name. And he was going over some tape of one of his matches, and he said, the right move at the wrong time is the wrong move. And so I applied that to herbal medicine, and saying like the right herb at the wrong time is the wrong herb, because we can find the most perfect herb to apply to that person, but if it's the wrong time, if their body isn't at that level, then it's the wrong herb. And that's that dance with the plants that we do. So Bacopa, like right there at the top of my list currently, to get back to your original question. And then ashwagandha is kind of in that same realm, very nourishing and grounding and supporting. That's a common herb that I give out a lot, partially because my love for it, but partially I see that's kind of what comes to the door, what people need. They need that more grounding, nourishing support versus that stimulant ginseng that's, you find it at every gas station. There's energy drinks with ginseng, and that's kind of the opposite of what we need right now. We need that more grounding, centering energy.
And
So
of course, sorry, go ahead.
You first.
I was just going to say, for all the portals opening, obviously we've done San Pedro and ayahuasca. That's where we met. So yeah, obviously that type of plant medicine that we don't offer here, unfortunately, or not yet anyway.
Yes, who knows?
But yeah, I mean, plants are amazing. Plants brought us together. Plants created this and our family, and I'm sure have helped people in all sorts of ways that are immeasurable.
It's so beautiful. Plant medicine is beyond description, especially if you're doing ceremony like you two did. And so this is really personal, but I need to ask it. So did you meet each other when you were when you had taken plant medicine, or did you make a really beautiful connection before or after the ceremony? Do you know what I'm asking? Were you enhanced?
It depends on who you're asking to which answer you're
Oh,
going to get on that one. So
we had to
okay.
poll everybody who was at that retreat
Yeah.
years later, and I'm sorry, but my version wins. David, it was described by one girl that David was levitating towards me. That's how she put it.
Oh,
If you talk to
goosebumpy.
David, I was bumping his knee on the bus on the way to the retreat.
Oh,
But
which version do you like better?
I like my version better.
I like it too. I'm gonna go with yours. Oh gosh.
there's amazing stories. So I mean, we're kind of there's a higher happening here besides just us being attracted to each other. There was something that called us there at that exact time, to be together. And there's so many moments through that retreat that kind of just signified like keep moving in that direction, even though there was resistance there to tell us to stop going that direction. And at the very end of it, our teacher Manai, he was there. We took a big group photo together, and obviously everybody sees that we had attracted to each other. And so we're taking the group photo, and the next thing you know, he grabs both of our hands and raises them up together, as like a as signifying like this is beautiful, this is amazing, like this is what this love that's coming, that it's not like this magical fairy tale where like we're just in perfect harmony all the time together, but we were perfectly brought together in that moment. And he signified that with us as well. And it's been ups and downs, and moving to the States and moving to Canada, and but it was perfectly harmonious the way we met, and like a great story.
Yeah, we were very volatile people in our lives at the time. Obviously, I mean, I was a police officer seeking ayahuasca. I mean, I wasn't in a great place. David had his own stuff going on. But somehow here we are 6 years later with 2 kids and a business. And sometimes things are bigger than what you think they're going to be. That's for sure.
Beautiful story. I really believe that we call each other forward in space and time long before we ever actually meet, and it's destiny. And which sounds like Hollywood has kind of ruined that word, but there's kind of, we source each other out universally before, and where you were brought together is like amazing. It was quite dramatic. You could do a series on that. It's very beautiful. And I've met your children. Oh my gosh, they are definitely inspired little beings. It's incredible.
Yes, if we ever are arguing or not seeing eye to eye or going through a rough patch, all we ever do is look at our kids and go, oh yeah, that's right.
That's
this
right.
Is why.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's become a common intention ground. And like she's saying, like those in a standard relationship, there is those ups and downs and disagreements and back and forth. But there's one thing that we're almost always on the same page with, is what's the best for these 2 children. Like we're always searching for that same goal. And then, sometimes when it's with the business, it's like one's thinking this direction, the other's thinking this direction, but with the children, they're everything. They're everything.
You've done
some for them.
Yeah, right. I believe it. I totally believe it, because your oldest comes in just like he's the boss of this place.
Yes.
Doesn't he?
Labeled your desk even. I don't know.
Yeah. I know he put a label on. Yeah. So everybody says, oh, I guess this is your desk. I said, yes, Corbin said so. So he's just lovely and so smart. Like he's just inspired beyond. There's a very old wise soul in him. And your youngest, I mean, she's something else.
She's our firecracker. Yeah, they're both Leos.
Yeah, that's right. They're both Leos. Oh my goodness.
They're born one day apart. So yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Good luck.
I was gonna say in the tarot, which you know quite well, because they're both Leos, they're both different aspects of fire. So I would say Corbin's like the water of fire. So that would be like the Queen of Wands, and then she's fire of water. So they both have both aspects, and how that expresses is different. You think it would be fairly similar, but it's a different form of expression, where Corb's fire comes through his emotions and the water, and her emotions emit as fire. So they come out as power, and her hair's red, his eyes are blue. It's amazing.
That's amazing. And one day he came in and gave me kind of a quizzing look, and he said, "Do you know what these cards are about? Do you know what this one means?" And I'm like, "No, tell me," because I know he's going to one up me for sure. Like, really, the awareness that you've infused into him and soon Alma is amazing. It's remarkable. Yeah.
They're special little kids, that's for sure.
Right. I always say our children are our greatest teachers, and it starts early. And you guys chose birthing that was highly unconventional. Can you tell us about it briefly?
Yeah.
I know it's a whole episode unto itself, but
it would be. And I did do a podcast. If anyone is curious for the full story, they can go to the Healing Birth podcast or season 3, episode 1, and they can hear the whole deal. But basically, it was a home birth at the beginning turned traumatic C-section. I lost all faith in midwifery, and it took me many years, even though I was already a geriatric mother. It took me many years. That's what they call it if you're over 35, I think. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, there's a lot of amazing things that they do in conventional birthing. But yeah, so it took me a long time to want to give Corbin a sibling, but it is something that I wanted. And when we got pregnant at the beginning of creating this business as well, I sought out another midwife, and nobody here on Vancouver Island, and only 2 places near Vancouver, would support a home birth after a C-section. So I felt really gaslit because they waited till halfway through the pregnancy to tell me that. And then I stumbled upon this idea of free birth, and it took us a little bit of time to be comfortable with taking responsibility for our own health to that level. But once we decided, it was done. So we just birthed Alma in 2021 in July, just David and I. And it was amazing. It was more psychedelic than any ayahuasca experience. I can vouch for that.
Wow. I heard a few details. I haven't listened to your podcast, which I would love to and will. But it's like, oh my gosh, the courage that it took to do that, and the trust in nature and your body.
Yeah.
I would say not courage, honestly. I would say it was fear of going back into the system. So there was it was a fear-based decision, to be completely honest. And because I feared the hospital and midwives and what they would do and coerce much more than I feared what would happen if I just birthed my baby in peace. So it was trust, though. It was learning to trust the body, that the female body knows exactly what to do, and to just trust that, and to keep trusting it through 48 hours of intense screaming and and the police being called. Yeah, lots of stuff happened, but
police were called.
Yeah, I was really loud, so the neighbors didn't like that. But
did they know what you were doing?
Well, I think the police officer knew. He stood in the driveway, apparently, just listening, and he was like, I don't want to see that. So
I could totally, the 911 call for whoever called the police, they're like, yeah, about every 3 minutes I hear a woman screaming for a minute. I don't know what that is, and we need to call the police. And when the officer came to the door, he's like, everything all right in there? I'm like, I'm wearing my San Pedro shirt that's all flowers. I have a bandana on. And he, in his mind, he's like, A, I don't want to go in there and see what's going on. B, I know exactly what they're doing. He's just checking, like, is everything all right? I'm like, yeah, we're fine. We're just home birthing our child. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right, have a good night. So he knew, but he didn't want to deal with it either.
Oh
Great.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, if there was something going askew, good on the neighbor for being concerned or caring, but and good on the officer for recognizing it for what it was.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
I'm glad he didn't come in there. Yeah.
I wonder whether he was protecting himself first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So your spirit selves, your connection to the etheric realms pervades everything that you do. Even that decision, even though fear drove you, I trust that it was your gut instinct that knew all would be well and was aligning with the powers that be to bring you safely through it and bring your baby safely forward.
And also the sense that birth is where it all starts for all of us. And through this whole evolution of that final pregnancy, things that we had thought before became more solidified in the sense that if we can birth babies in a peaceful way, this world would change very quickly. So it's incredibly touching moment for us. It's something we care deeply about. We would love to help more women. Again, meeting them where they're at. Not necessarily everybody is going to want to birth without a wise woman or a midwife or somebody present, but I do believe that it all begins at birth. And the way allopathic medicine has taken that over and created a medical event out of something that's so natural. It's partly why we're in the mess that we're in, I think.
Well said. Wow, that's powerful. Wow. I know we all have our birthing stories, and yours is so unique that I truly wish that all those that are on the same wavelength find you, because it's truly.
I hope they find their strength to do what's right and best for them and to guard that space like a mama bear.
Yes. Wow. I have so much respect for both of you.
Thank you.
I know you were in the process, which is one aspect. And David, were there any moments where you felt quite helpless and you had to kind of tap back into being the strength and kind of the grounding?
Yeah, I mean, for those 2 days, it was so much of the reality of things that the thought and the worry is worse than the actual event itself. And so leading into it, I'm worried and concerned about choices, but saying like, this is the choice we're making. For those 2 days, I felt I was pretty connected. Like I kept saying, the only thing I really said every 3 minutes was everything's healthy and normal, reminding her that this is the natural process. And then there's a lot of different changes in the process, which it's a bigger story. Andrew, like I said, has the podcast, but there was this moment where it moved from normal contractions to Andrew's like, I'm done. And then she moved into transition, which now all of a sudden the contraction went to like every 8 minutes. And that's like, we knew something that was a big sign for us. And that's when I kind of started losing it a little bit. Like, that's when I'm like, I don't know where to go. I got to find the blankets. I got to warm up the blankets.
He was crazy.
Did you run and boil water?
Cutting blankets into strips for some reason. No, I was like a screaming person for 48 hours just about by that point, and David was calm and he was a rock the entire time, and I was bruising him and screaming in his face the entire time. And then as soon as that transition hit, I was calm. I had 8 minutes now to recover and rest. And I start cleaning up and like, the baby's coming. It's going to be good now. And David's just like, where's the camera? What's happening? It was so funny. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's all about the balance, right?
Totally.
Where one is strong, the other can kind of let go and fall into those smithereens for a bit. Yeah. Oh, well done, you two. It's a remarkable story, and I encourage people to find the podcast and we can list it in the notes below,
Awesome.
so that there's a connection there. And David, you do podcasts all the time with Kristen at the store. They're so great. They just keep getting better and better. So I love what everybody's up to. It's powerful stuff. We love to listen. We might not have time to read anymore, it seems, but
Definitely, it's easier to listen for sure.
yeah. Is it getting easier for you? And I feel like there's a kind of a new creative edge coming into what you guys are producing.
Kristen is coming into the space where that's another amazing synchronicity of this business. Like, I haven't had to be the type of owner where I had to like take 12 resumes and then interview 12 people. Kristen found us through kind of the grapevine, and everything worked out and aligned perfectly. And then Chris and I were talking like, let's start a podcast. Because again, like, this isn't if you go to a conventional dispensary, like, the only brand that's promoted is the brand of the dispensary. And that's the opposite of what I wanted here. Because I've been through those hoops. There's a whole private practice that I wanted to launch that I had to keep quiet, if you will. And when Kristen came in, I'm like, how do we get your brand out there alongside with Errant Empires? And then we came to the Functional Herbal Medicine podcast, and we're only, we're 4 episodes in, and there's such a reciprocity in conversation with each other that it sounds and like it's a very good coming together for our practice, because we think similarly. We're both science-based, but tap into the energetic. So yeah, that podcast is going to be something we can try to hold around for a while.
Well, what I've heard is brilliant, and you're both so strong and so solid in what you're doing. Yet there's such deep respect for the individuality as well, which is, I think, a testament to both of you and all of you, right? I see you, Andrea, as you're behind the scenes yet so present. Like, honestly, your strength I feel your strength there all the time. And David, you infuse Andrea into so many conversations. And again, you are a part of it energetically. It's very palpable. So thanks for that.
I do care very much about the shop. I'm very, along with all the stress and the difficult conversations that the shop brings to our household, and financial concerns and whatnot, all the things that go with business, mostly the overarching feeling is how proud I am of what David does, and the shop we've created together. And like the name Errant Empire, the whole point of that was sort of, the errant knight from Arthurian legend, where this, warrior goes out clad in metal and goes off the beaten path, to go find adventure and to prove himself and his virtues. And to me, that's kind of what we're doing. And some people have commented they don't like the word empire, but to me, that's this whole community of holistic practitioners, the people who've awakened over the last couple of years, women who are free birthing their babies. There's a whole subsection of society, the trucker convoy even. There are people who are creating an empire that I think will change things. So we want to be part of that. This is our little piece. And so we're going off the beaten path to do our thing and make these dreams real.
When people hear the thought and consideration that's been given to the name, to the function, to the presence, to the collective, to the sovereignty, it's so profound what you're up to. And it just, this conversation alone today is, just made me fall more in love with what you're up to and be even more proud of being part of that. So I really, in conclusion here, I want to thank you both from the bottom of my heart for the space you provide, the opportunity for growth, for healing on all the levels, because you're not just about herbs. You're certainly not. You're about all the portals, as I mentioned before, all the opportunities to expand and evolve as humans, as women, as men, as children. as beings on this earth. So I am deeply grateful. Thank you.
Well, we're very honored to have you in our space. You've been one of our teachers so long before this was even a thought in our heads. So to have you here and practicing here is special for us.
Well, thank you. I take it as indeed a real privilege to kind of come together with, because we all have the same intentions, and to be able to be in space where we can express that is invaluable. Like it's huge. It's huge. And I love the reciprocity that we have in terms of what I do and what you do, David, and what the shop represents, you know, as a whole. It's the perfect apple pie.
Now I want apple pie.
I know, right? It's like, oh, what time is it? Much love to both of you. I hope we can do this again. We'll put down all the links to your podcast and the store, and many blessings to you and your family. And we will see each other very, very soon.
Thanks,
You as well.
Maureen.
Thank
Love
you.
you.
And love you too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.